Shout out to Hip Hop Man. This is why Michael Jackson bought Eminem music rights. We're gonna get straight into it.
Brought to you by Manscaped.com, the global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products.
I've never met Mr. Eminem, and to have him, I've always admired him, and to have him do something like that was pretty painful as an artist to another artist. And it's sad because, well, I think what Stevie Wonder said is true. And I just don't want to say too much more than that. But he should be ashamed of himself, what he's doing. It was wrong of Eminem to do what he did. Great artists don't do that.
When it comes to musical legacies, few are more talked about than the King of Pop. Arguably as recognizable as Coke, Tesla, or any other global brand, Michael Jackson was so widely known that most of the time that he stepped outside, he did so in disguise. And just like any other multinational business, Michael's portfolio went way beyond his music catalog. For all that his public image has been widely dissected and debated over, one of the less scrutinized or studied aspects of Michael Jackson is the massive control that he had in the shadowy world of music publishing. Over the course of his career, Michael boasted his own record-breaking earnings by acquiring either entire catalogs or the select hits of other artists. But where there were instances where this could be chalked up to simple business, there are others in which the incentives behind purchasing the records seemed more personal. And in the case of one of hip-hop's biggest stars, it's been argued that it was a petty chess move, an act of revenge. Known for his trademark wardrobe and fondness for living as though he were Peter Pan, and the unsavory allegations that have often accompanied that lifestyle, MJ's eccentricities had long been easy pickings for any artist or comedian that thrived on cultural commentary. And in hip-hop, few have used it as fuel for their come-up quite like Eminem. So with Michael's flaws being so apparent to the world, it came as no surprise that Shady would use them as fuel for some tongue-in-cheek antics. During a tour stop in Glasgow in 2003, he famously dangled a doll off a balcony in the same way that Michael did with his newborn baby at a Berlin hotel. But while this likely annoyed him, it was his next joke at Michael's expense that aggravated him the most. Released in 2004, Just Lose It would serve as the lead single from M's fifth studio album, Encore. And while its video openly parodied MJ in the ways that he was used to, the track's ill-intentioned lyrics only made their beef more intense. Angered by Eminem's depiction of him and his reference to his child accusations, MJ initially tried to get Just Lose It banned. After crowds had gathered in New York's Times Square, Michael spoke to Geraldo Rivera and flexed the power he had.
In London, over 4,000 people showed up on my behalf. And I want to thank Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton, Minister Farrakhan, The Source, Steve Harvey, Bob Johnson and BET, Kathy Hughes and Radio 1, and all the many others who have supported me. I made my feelings clear about the Eminem video. I think that it's demeaning and disrespectful, but I also want to make it clear that it's not just about Michael Jackson, but a pattern of disrespect that he has shown to our community. He needs to stop it, and he needs to stop it now.
Mike wasn't playing.
Typically, Eminem was unfazed, and in fact, seemed to be honored by the response that he got.
I'm just happy that Michael Jackson has heard of me.
Alright, so with 2022 looking brighter than last year already, it's likely that a lot of you will be looking to get out there and enjoy yourself. And with 85% of women feeling as though it's our duty to keep things trimmed in the downstairs department, it'd be wise to stack the odds in your favor.
Meant to be all in jest, as with the MC Hammer, the Madonna, the Pee Wee Herman. Right. Fun.
Left without a proper resolution, the feud simmered, and seeing as the animosity seemed to be a one-way thing, it was largely left unsaid from there on out. Until in 2007, Michael's Sony ATV venture, which had amassed a massive amount of the world's combined musical wealth by this point, purchased the massively lucrative Famous Music Library for $370 million. In this deal, MJ would find themselves with the rights to tracks by artists such as Bjork, Shakira, and Beck, among others. And when it came down to it, industry insiders believed that it was Marshall Mathers' discography that he was eager to control, most likely as a flex. The polarizing Benzino, who'd been beefing with Eminem at his position at The Source, claimed that he and MJ actually discussed the topic via a lengthy telephone call. In a now deleted post, Zeno revealed that. When Eminem did a diss on Michael Jackson in 2004, Michael made no comments. He went and bought Eminem's whole catalog, and then got paid every time Eminem performed. I was at the Turnberry Hotel in Miami when I got a call from Michael Jackson, and we talked for about 45 minutes about Eminem disrespecting him. He thanked me for standing up to him and spoke about, in his words, the devil's running the music industry. He mentioned Tommy Mottola and a few others. I will never forget that conversation. I had no idea he bought the catalog. In reality, Benzino's words were an overstatement. MJ couldn't acquire it all, but he did make off with the classics Without Me and The Real Slim Shady. And the idea that it was spiteful was reinforced by the idea that his finances weren't as significant as they once were, evidenced by MJ selling 25% of his ATV catalog back to Sony just 1 year prior. And as music historians know, that was a deal that was mired in controversy in its own right. Carried out in 1985, Michael's acquisition of the ATV catalog is one of the most fascinating tales in the history of the music industry. While it was undoubtedly a good investment, it showed that when it came to publishing, MJ would step over enemies and so-called friends alike. What's more, he even purchased the rights to the music of the very man that suggested he get into it, the Beatles, Paul McCartney.
It actually kind of fell apart a little bit later. He was talking to me and asking my business advice, and one of the things I said to him was, think about getting into music publishing. And he looked at me, he was joking, he said, I'm going to get yours. But it turned out to be true. Then I started to ring him up, because I thought, okay, here's the guy historically placed to give Lennon McCartney a good deal at last.
Adamant that it was just business when asked by Paul, it raises the question of whether Michael was simply playing dumb all along or if it was opportunism at its most profitable. After securing the records from Sir Lou Grade for $41.5 million, Michael soon licensed their music out to advertising in a way that was ideologically misaligned with how Paul wanted their material to be used. Up until this point, Paul had resisted the allure of the big advertising checks in order to preserve the messages of the songs. Now, Michael was leasing them out to the highest bidder. Vocally angered by the situation, Paul discussed how it devalued their output. But there are those who believe that the money generated from the Beatles was just a bonus, and his real reason for purchasing it came from a place of righting historical wrongs.
When Michael bought that music catalogue, I'm quite convinced that it wasn't for the Beatles music, because he never ever did anything with that. It was actually because what was politically incorrectly called, I suppose, the black music. It was the Nat King Cole and all those great American singers and dancers.
Left reeling from an unexpected power shift, Sony soon responded by purchasing Epic Records, MJ's then label. And whenever offers came in, Michael simply said that it wasn't for sale. Years later, the ATV catalog was sold back to Sony after his death for a sum of $750 million. And while its value had skyrocketed even then, today, it's estimated that it would go for somewhere upwards of $2.4 billion. With the ATV purchase, Michael had brokered one of the most historic deals in the history of music and put more power in artists' hands than had ever been wielded. Immediately after inking the deal, MJ had enough capital to retire from touring whenever he wanted, and he did just that for essentially the last decade before he passed away, announcing but never completing a farewell tour dubbed This Is It in 2009. Armed with an insatiable appetite for all sides of the music business, this goes way deeper than buying Eminem's catalog for revenge. Instead, MJ was always on the lookout for his next acquisition. Speaking to Vlad TV, famed producer Rodney Darkchild Jerkins detailed his own experience with MJ and his desire to buy as much of the industry as he could.
Sitting there and we just talking really about nothing. We just kicking it. And then I went to use the restroom and I saw a note he wrote in the restroom saying, talk to Rodney about his publishing. Then I come back and he goes, so I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk to you about your publishing and see if you're interested in selling it to me.
The proud owner of some of music's most cherished records and flushed with more riches than anyone could want, most people would believe that his involvement in the publishing game was an incredibly wise move on his part. But for others such as Akon, they believe that his business acumen and the audacity that he had to hold so much power had meant that he created powerful enemies that do anything to discredit him.
I think all that was propaganda because Mike was doing such big things in the publishing world. The music side, he was buying out a lot of great real estate and he wouldn't sell it back. And then of course his own catalog, there was a big fight around that. I think what Michael was more about, it was power, because he was super smart and understood what real value meant to America. So he had access to a lot of American value, and he owned it. And if he didn't own it 100%, he owned it 50%. And I think at that moment, that's when a lot of the propaganda started coming out.
True or not, the fact that Michael's stature was such that this could even be entertained by level-headed people speaks to the depths of his success and notoriety in the industry. Granted enough seed money that he could purchase some publishing for honorable reasons and others for more self-serving ones, Michael Jackson's moves in the music industry, regardless of your view on where his place in its history should reside, are both unprecedented and irreplicable. Because in the modern era, the nature of the industry will prohibit anyone from ever becoming powerful to that same degree.
Man, that's crazy. With that being said, let me know what y'all think about this whole situation. I definitely think he was a smart man, had a lot of power, and had a lot of touch and reach, and over a lot of countries and stuff like that. Appreciate y'all for the love and support. Love us loving. I'm gonna catch you on the next video.